Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands and waterways on which we are recording today, the Wurundjeri, Wairarong and Bunurong people of the Eastern and Greater Kulin Nation. We pay our deepest respect to their elders, past and present, and we extend that respect to all First Nations peoples. We honour their sovereignty was never ceded. We acknowledge that their enduring and unbroken connection and contributions, the storytelling, as well as their continued fight and deep understanding, commitment and caring for country, lands, waterways, sky, culture and communities. We stand with them in their ongoing calls for truth-telling, treaty, sovereignty, justice, land rights and reconciliation. This was, and always will be, Aboriginal land. Imagine a world where some of Naarm-Melbourne's earliest telephone lines weren't actually connected to homes or businesses, but brothels. Yep, that's right, where the city's most powerful men slipped from Parliament chambers into the secret tunnels leading straight to the red light underworld. This was Lil Lon's forbidden district that beat with the city's scandalous pulse. Before we begin, quick heads up. Today's episode includes some adult themes, references to sex, poverty, and social inequality in 19th century Melbourne. So it may be confronting for some listeners and viewers. So if this is not the right time for you, I completely understand, as your well-being comes first. Please consider either to pause, skip, or check out one of our lesser episodes. But if you do choose to go with this episode, as always, remember, please listen and watch with care. Welcome to Down the Yarra, the podcast that takes you on a deep dive into the heart and soul of Naarm-Melbourne and South Central Victoria. Whether you're a local or just curious, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Andy, and today we're taking you on a deep dive into what was once the red light district of Old Naarm-Melbourne, Lil Lon's district. So, before we dive in, right before the episode, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to here on YouTube, and follow us on Podbean and socials for more. Thanks. Once upon a time, it was a maze of narrow little laneways, in which we know it now as the block of Latrobe, Elizabeth, Burke, and Spring Streets, stood a district simply known as Lil Lon's. It was the old Naarm-Melbourne red light district, a tight grid of cottages, slide grog shops, boarding houses, as well as top-end, high-end brothels that flourished during the late 1800s gold boom. It was a place of contradictions, from working-class families next to elite madames, who entertained not only politicians, yet bankers as well as foreign dignitaries. When the gold flowed, Lil Lon glittered, but when the 1890s economic bust and later the 1930s depression hit Melbourne, it became one of the city's most contemporary slums of the CBD. Among the district's infamous characters were Melbourne's premier high-end madames. These women ran palace of luxury, consisting of the finest Parisian and European luxuries. Amongst them were the finest chandeliers, velvet couches, and French wine, complete opposite to what was outside and the poverty it faced. Yet behind the glamour, Lil Lon was a community. Immigrants, ex-convicts, and women of colour carving their own place in society that offered them very little in return. These stories once were buried, slowly resurfacing through archaeology and archives and various oral history projects as well. For a brilliant companion episode, listen, please go and check out Look History in the Eye, Melbourne. Their episode on the stolen sceptre of Victorian State Parliament, an artefact that vanished and never was returned. It paints the same backdrop of political scandal and hidden vice that defined Lil Lon's district and the era. So go and check it out wherever you get your podcast, i.e. Apple or Spotify, etc. Here's a fact that blows most people's minds. Some of Melbourne's earliest telephone lines, yes, the city's first communication network, were set up between State Parliament and some of the houses in Lil Lon's. That's right. It's said that these connections allowed discretion between certain gentlemen of the state and the ladies of the night. And even today, the stories persist of hidden service tunnels that once linked the two. Whether it's literal or metaphorical, it spoke volumes about the lives of the elite in Melbourne at the time. If you want to see the city's dark layers actually being brought back to life, check out Sir Tony Robinson's Time Travels episode on his walk around Melbourne CBD-ish, where he explores the origins of the city's call girls and how the brothels and technology helped shape the very infrastructure that is beneath our feet today. Only on YouTube. By the early 19 and mid 1900s, the moral tides had turned. The councils and reformers labelled Lil Lon as a slum and began to clear it block by block under the so-called improvement scheme. By the 50s and 60s, the entire district was all but erased in name and memory from the map and replaced by government buildings and then eventually corporate offices. Yes, archaeological digs in the early to mid 90s had unearthed perfume bottles imported from China, hand-sketched corsets, as well as children's toys, which were fragments that tell more human stories than moral crusaders could ever do so. Today, if you stand around Lonsdale Street and look towards Lil Lon's, you'll find heritage plaques, public art, and some hints of the past beneath the city's polished surface. Next time in Down the Arrow, we trace another part of Lonsdale's story and history, from the original Melbourne Hospital to Queen Victoria Hospital for Women, right through to QV Square and Queen Victoria Centre you walked through today. It's truly a story of healing, women's rights, rebirth, right in the heart of the CBD. If you've enjoyed today's episode on Lil Lon's shadowy lanes and district, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Down the Yarra over at Podbean and across our socials. For more hidden histories, forgotten streets, and wild Naarm, Melbourne, South and South Central Victorian stories. As always, I'm your host, Andy. Remember that just beneath every shiny CBD tower, there is another Naarm-Melbourne, just waiting to be heard and rediscovered at the same time.